Hello and welcome developers, my name is Shay and this is another episode of Shay Develops. Today we're going to be looking into linked lists in Java, that's right. So if you're not familiar with the linked list, it works a lot like the ArrayList video that I had before that I showed last week. Except for it works a bit differently as far as it allows you to not necessarily do more, but it's a bit cleaner in its approach as far as whenever you update and modify things. And that allows it to be both a little quicker and a bit more efficient as well as far as like memory usage and stuff like that whenever you are modifying this stuff. And we're going to go into that here in this video as we create a shopping list command line app that allows us to input the items in our shopping list that we want to, and we're not going to be worrying about scanner for us to user input or anything like that. If you want to, you can check out my video on scanners and then apply that to this if you would like to. It would be super easy to do, but we're not going to be doing that in this video. But we will be creating a custom class, our shopping list class, and then adding our items to it. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So in order to get started, we're going to clear this out here. And then we're going to create our first linked list. Now to create a linked list, you'll see it right here, linked list. And you'll also notice that it imports the javautil.linkedList class as well. So we can also, if you remember from the array list, these greater than and less than signs, this will be where we input our type of what kind of type we're going to be expecting the values in our linked list to be. So we're going to make it items equals new linked list. And then we're going to start off very simple. We're just going to add some items to the linked list. So it'll be items. So right here, where we are variable declaration and initialization, we're going to be items.add. So right here we have two different ones. We can either add it to string E and it's going to go down the line and just put it at the end, or we can set what index value. And remember, our indexes from earlier videos, we say the index start at 0 and count up to n minus 1, n being how many items you actually have in your array or linked list or whatever it is that you're currently working on. So we're just going to do this one right here, the standard, because we're just going to put them in order. And later on, though, we will be doing that one, but it's super simple. You'll see. All right, so let's say here we just have item 1, and we're going to make a few of these, right? Item 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then let's say we wanted to output these. Well, we could just do items and just leave it at that. And let's output and let's run this and see how this is going to look. Give it just a second. We're building down here. And you can see here we have item 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 output it or printed out in what looks like an array format. And that's totally fine. See, if you wanted to output it this way, but usually you'd want to. It's not. Usually that's not how you would want to do it. So you can output these, like I said, obviously using like a for loop. So you could do for, and then do items.size, and just do out items.get. And you see we have get first, get last, and then I'll obviously get the first and last of the items in our list, but we can just use get and then supply it with I, and then run that again. Oh, well, you're just going to see the two differences, obviously. See, this one inputted them out, like I said, in an array, and this one outputted them individually. Item 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, but there's other ways to do this, and we're going to go into that as far as using what's called an iterator. An iterator allows us to cycle through our items and output them in a quick and easy way. And also, that was pretty quick and easy, to be perfectly honest. But we can also use something else that we're going to dive into later, called just shortly after that, called a list iterator. And the list iterator allows us to make changes to our linked list without much of an issue. Now let's see what happens whenever we actually make something, make some changes. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna comment that out for now. I'm gonna leave this, and let's do items.add, and this time we're going to use the second one right here that takes an index and then the string element that we're adding to it. So say we wanted to add an item to index 1, which is item number 2. Now in an array we could do this, but it wouldn't add an item. It would copy over the other item that would be in there, and then this item that we're putting in there would take its place. With linked list though, what happens is, well actually with ArrayList, let's go over that real quick first. In ArrayList, it would put that item there, but it would have to go through all the other items that are in that array list, and then add 1 or subtract 1 if you were to remove it from or to all of those items that come after the one that we're trying to add in before. But with linked lists, it doesn't do that because of how the linked list interacts with each other. Because with the linked list, item 1 points to item 2, item 2 points to item 3, item 3 points to item 4, and item 4 points to item 5, and that's automatically done within Java. And it goes vice versa. Item 5 also points to 4, 3, 2, and 1. And you'll see that here in a minute whenever we talk about has next, and has previous with the iterator. Whenever we go more in depth into that, whenever we create our custom class and stuff. So let's first just continue on with here. So we have items.add. So we have this here index, and then we're going to talk about our string. So we'll just put item 6, and then let's go ahead. Copy this again, and we could just make a little a method for that, and we will here in just a minute. But now we're going to print out all the items again, and you're going to see, you don't see the indexes of them, but you're going to see how they get printed out. Let's do something like this. Let's run that one more time. All right. So now that we go up here, you see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's see, now we have item 1, 6, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you see how 6 has now been added to the linked list, and then all the other items have been pushed down. Now they haven't necessarily been pushed down. I mean, yes, their indexes have definitely changed, but they haven't changed in the way that ArrayList changes its indexes, right? So item 1 now points to item 6, where item 1 used to point to item 2, but now item 6 points to item 2, then item 3, 4, and 5, and so forth down the list, however many values that you have. Now that may seem a little odd at start, but you're going to see, hopefully you'll start grasping like why that is and how that's so powerful. So like I was talking before about how it's more efficient, is because whenever you messing with an array list, if you have hundreds of thousands of items in your array list, and then you modify one, you have to then modify the indexes of all the preceding ones after it. So with this way, you don't actually have to do that. You just have to modify basically one item, and then the item previous and after that will point to the new item, and you don't have to change with any of the other ones. So hopefully you guys are understanding that how efficient, or that concept, and how you can get a bit more out of it. So let's go ahead and show you another way to print out these values, and that is with an iterator. So we're going to come down here and we're going to create our own method that we're going to use. Would be private, and we haven't talked about access modifiers, but just keep it here. Private static void print items, and we're going to pass it a linked list with strings called items. And then we are going to create our iterator, which is iterator, again, of string values, I equals items dot iterator. Now we get this iterator because it is a linked list. It's built into the linked list functionality. But you'll also notice that once we call it, we have to import it up here as well. Now, not NetBeans, but IntelliJ is automatically doing that for me, so I don't actually have to do that. You can do that. You can set that up in the properties of your IntelliJ IDE. I'm not going to do that now. I'm possibly will create another video for that in the future. Now, iterators, they traverse, or they go through data of many different types, right? They can do lists, they can do sets, they can do queues, and a list can be an array list, it can be a linked list. So not to confuse you guys, but if I was to go up here and change this from a linked list to a list, after I add it in, so what you see right here, everything still works exactly the same. That's because list is the superclass of the linked list. But we're going to go ahead and cut it back to what it was, just Control Z. Now that we have our iterator, we can do something like this. So while, hold on, before I start that, I'm really sorry, but we need to talk about this as well. This iterator, we can just print out elements here. We can't change any elements within our list. If we do, we're going to get a throws, concurrent modification, exception error, and we don't want that. So we're not going to make any changes with this method that we're creating, but we will make a change later. So I'll show you that, guys, in a little bit. So we while I, which is the name of our value here, which is an iterator, dot has next, which is going to output a true or false value, because we know from the while video that we created that a while takes a true or false value, just like any other if then or if else or whatever statements that we have that do that. So while I dot has next, meaning that while one of these items still points to another item below that, it's still, that's going to output true. So now we're going to output items I dot next. Now I dot next does two things. It returns the current item and then moves to the next item in the list automatically. So if you want to revert that, you can do I dot previous and that's not going to work. It's actually right now. I'll show you that in a bit, but I'll show you how that works and very, very shortly. But you can use I dot previous to modify that back to the item in that it was previously pointing to. So let's go ahead and get rid of that for now, and let's go ahead and grab this. Control W, X, and then V, and then we can actually get rid of these, and we can do print items and then pass it our linked list, which is just items and then you can see again how we're just going to output that the same as it was before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make it a little bigger, and then 1, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we added it right here. All right, so now let's go ahead and generate our shopping list and create the some actual functionality and use this list iterator and these linked lists a little bit more. So we're going to right click here, we're going to create a new Java class. We're going to call it shopping list, and then we're going to do private string name, be the name of the shopping list that we create, and then private linked list of string, and we're going to call it just items, right? And we're going to set that equal to a new linked list. And the reason we're setting that equal to right now is because we're not going to mess with it as far as inside the constructor. Now we could overload it and have two different constructors. We talked about overloading in a previous video. We could overload it though and have two different constructors. One that allows us to just input the name and then we can add items to it later, or one that allows us to input the name and some amount of values later as well, but some amount of values within right then and there. But we're going to stick with it with here right now, and we're going to go ahead and create our constructor, because as we know in the constructor video, if we don't create it now, Java, the JV and the Java virtual machine will create one for us, but it'll be totally blank and won't work as expected. So within our constructor though, actually we don't have to do that because we set it up here, but we could just do items equals new linked list right here. And so if we took this away, this would also work just the same, but I want to keep mine just like this, so go ahead and revert that. And then we also had a video about getters and setters, and but we don't actually need them in this particular class that we're creating. But we do want to take that print items class that we already created right here within the main. We're going to take that, we're going to copy it, oh, didn't mean to do that, and we're going to paste it here, and we're going to remove the word static. Now static would allow us to run this command, let me just go ahead and show you. It would allow us to run this command without actually instantiating or initializing our shopping list class. So if we just wanted to go shopping list dot print items, make sure that's correct. Yeah, shopping list dot print item. But actually, we would also have to make this public. So let's go ahead and make that public anyway, because we are going to make that public because we want that to be able to be seen by other classes within our program. So shopping list dot print items, you see that shows up there now, and we would just have to apply or add in a linked list. So if I was to add in items here, and then we comment the rest of this out, and then we run this, it'll output item 1, 6, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh, that's right, it won't output it because we commented all of this. Let's do uncomment that and uncomment that. Now it'll output 1, 2, 3, or 1, 6, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can see that it actually does right there. Alright, so let's go ahead and get back. So now we obviously know how to print items, but we're not going to use static anymore. We're just going to do .print items, and actually we don't even need this linked list at all, but we're going to keep it in there for now. But here in a little bit though, we may change it to where you can just use this dot items and output some values that way. So we could do, well, maybe this dot items, we could get rid of here. I know I said we wouldn't do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now, and that it already works. So if we do this again, see, but now since we're passing items to it, it doesn't like that. We're going to erase that. We still have an issue. I wonder why. That is because we removed the word static. We need to put static back in there, but because of that, we can't use this. So let's go ahead and remove that back. So it means we won't be able to just run it without first instantiating our object. So if we did shopping list, say grocery list equals new shopping list with the name grocery list, and And then instead of shopping list here, we change this to grocery list. We'll see that it now works again. And so hopefully you guys are still following along. And we're going to obviously continue. So we don't need this anymore. We can actually go ahead and get rid of that because we added it to our shopping list class. So let's go ahead and, so we were talking about earlier like how Iterator doesn't allow us to add items to our list, but we can do that with a list iterator. So if we want to do that with a list iterator, let's go public boolean add to list order, which is going to input the items in alphabetical order, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. So we got a string item. We're just going to pass it an item, and each item that we pass, it's going to go through, find a place for it, and put it in there. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that the item that has been passed isn't null. So if item equals null, we're just going to output no item submitted and return false. This easy little error check right there. And then we're going to use our list iterator that we talked about just a second ago. So right here we got list iterator. You can bring that in the drop down there, it comes down. List iterator, and we're going to pass it, or not pass it a string, but tell it it's going to be strings. They're going to be passed into the list iterator. So li for list iterator. I'm just going to leave it at that. Equals, and you can name that variable anything, but equals this dot grocery items dot list iterator. Now that it is not working for some reason, and I wonder why. That's because it's called items. List dot items dot list iterator. There we go. Sorry about that little mistake there. So we do list dot items dot, and you'll see now it pops up on our well, menu there. So okay. Let's continue on. So let's output this dot name be the name of the name of the shopping list. So if we have different shopping lists like grocery shopping list, car part shopping list, or whatever, we can name them to whatever it is that we want to. So we're going to use our while again to go through the items. So while li dot has next to give us that true or false value, to make sure that to let us know that if the value that we're currently on has another value that it can that is connected to down the road and not before, then it'll just continue to turn true. So the next thing we need to do is compare the value that we currently are on with the value that's been imported, or that has been imported into our method here, to see if they're the same, because we don't want duplicates. We don't need bacon twice. I mean, sure, I want bacon twice, but we don't need to add bacon twice to our list. We can just get as much bacon as we want to whenever we get to the store. So let's do int compare equals, so do li.next dot compare to, and we could actually use compare to ignore case as well, and that's totally fine. We're going to use compare to now, and we're going to pass it the item. So basically, without compare to with case, you could put in bacon capital B, bacon lowercase b, and they'd be put in there, each time. And that's totally fine. But for now, we're just going to, like I said, we're just going to use compare, or compare to. So just to see what we've actually been comparing, because it'll return different values based off of if it's the same, higher, or lower in whenever it's comparing the values. So let's do compare. Let's actually make it more obvious. Compare value. There we go. So we'll compare each time that we run this and add the list to the order or not. All right. and you'll probably see it pop up multiple times while we're running this, but for now we won't worry about it. So we're going to do if compare equals 0. Now if they equal 0, that means that the item is already in our list and we don't need to add it to the list. So let's just at least give out a little explanation as far as like what we're wrong, saying that we could not add the item to the list. It's already in the grocery list. Well, let's just put list because we don't know what kind of list it is for this dot name. And then we must return false because right here is our return. What we're expecting to return from our method is a Boolean, so false is a Boolean, and once we return something, we leave the method that we're now in. So we'll leave the if statement, we'll leave the while statement, and we'll leave the add to list order method as well. So we'll leave all of that and then continue on with our program. So the next thing we want to check out for is if compare is greater than 0. Now if compare is greater than 0, the item will appear before the item that we are currently comparing it to. But if you remember from just a little bit ago, we talked about next and how next can it gets the current value that we're on and we can output it that way with the next, but then it also moves on to the next item in our list. But that's not good if we're wanting to input the item previous one item. Instead it'll input it after. So in order to do that with that compare, remember that has next or previous thing that I was talking about earlier that didn't work, it looked like kind of didn't know what I was doing. That's because it's li here because we're in our list iterator previous. Now I said this is some built-in stuff with the list iterator that allows us to now go back one value within our items, and then we can add it just like so. Hopefully you guys didn't hear that. That was my Xbox in the background. Totally sorry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and return true, because that means if we added it and everything's good, yay, that's a good sign, and we can get out of this method and continue on. But there's one other thing we need to account for, and that's if compare is less than 0, and that means that the item is greater than the item in the list, and it needs to move on to the next item in the list and compare that one to see if it can go there. So we'll just put a little note here, say move on to the next item and try again. Alright, so if none of that works, we're going to come out of the while loop, and that means we're at the end of our list and this item should go at the end of the list. So li.add item, and then like you might have guessed it, we do need still to return something, so we'll return true, and that is it for our add to list order item. So now we can come in, we can actually just mouse is freaking out a little bit. We can comment this stuff out. I got a lot of comments right here for this one. Go ahead and clean that up a little bit. Alright, so now we can comment this stuff out. We have our items. We've created our grocery list. Just because what we called it right here. Our shopping list is now our grocery list. And then now we can start to add items into it in order. So we could do grocery list dot add to list order, and we're going to just pass it something. We'll pass it apples. Let's pass it a few things. We'll pass it apples, bacon, and peanut butter. Some of my favorite foods there. And then we can grocery list dot print items, and you'll see how they're all, well, okay, see now they're actually automatically all in order. So let's actually keep it the same for right now. We'll output it, and then we'll add some more items in afterwards that are going to go in random places. So you see, we're outputting grocery list too many times. So we will just comment that out. Alright, so we have grocery list. Oh, that's only because, yeah, never mind. Alright, we'll just erase that. But you'll first notice that this grocery list had nothing to output. That was the one that we just erased. So now we've added some items to our grocery list. We've added apples, bacon, peanut, and peanut butter, right? So now we can see here we have apples, bacon, and peanut butter. We've got our grocery list and our compare to value. So compare value was -1, meaning that it was less than 0. So it moved on, and it actually never found anything at all. So it came down here to li.addItem and got it and found it as or added it to the end of the list. You might think, okay, that's a little strange. It's actually not. What happens whenever you create this right here, this li, this doesn't automatically bring you to the next value. It's in like the setup phase value, and then whenever we do next, this takes us to our very first value. And that might seem a little convoluted, but hopefully you guys can understand that when the very first value in our list iterator is not our very first value, it's a setup. And then whenever we call next, that actually takes us to our very first value. Let's go back here. So now we have some items and we printed them out. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this compare value right here because we don't need that anymore. And now we can go ahead and try and add this value to the list again, apples. And let's add a couple more things. So do apples, pineapple. If you don't notice, I really like fruits. And bread. Now pineapple is going to come after peanut butter, but bread is going to become after bacon. So if we've done this correctly, when we output the items, it'll go apples, bacon, bread, pineapple, and then, or peanut butter, then pineapple. So let's go ahead and grocery list dot print items. Boom, we see we got apples, bacon, peanut butter, and then it says apples is already in the list for grocery list, so we don't actually have to worry about we don't have to worry about duplicating items within our list. But as you can see, it goes apples, bacon, bread, peanut butter, and pineapple, just like we thought. So it puts us in alphabetical order. So that's pretty awesome, right? And pretty simple to do. So the next thing we might want to do is clear our list. Say we've done shopping, we want to clear our list and add some more stuff to the next one. So in order to do that, let's create another function within our shopping list. We'll call it public, well, we won't do static, we'll do public void because we won't be returning anything. Let's call it clear list. And we're going to pass it a linked list of strings called items. Now let's output something like clearing list and then clear the list. In order to do that, we'll just do items dot, and right here we have the word clear, and that is it. That's all you have to do. Let's go ahead and clear that. So we'll do grocery list dot clear. Oh, hold on, something's not right here. Public void clear list on our shopping list. Oh, there it is, clear list. I don't know what was taking that so long, but clear list, and then we pass our grocery list. Oh, I have made a definitely made a mistake. We need to pass our linked list, and that's actually fine. See, I made a mistake here. So just sorry, just items, which is our linked list above. Sorry about that. We see we're passing it our items after we've cleared it, and then now we can output our grocery list. And actually, I think this is not going to work as intended. I don't think it's going to clear the list. Clearing list, and then it outputs our grocery list and addressed type. So what we'd have to do is just, instead of that, we would do print list or grocery list dot print items. Run that again. Yeah, and we didn't actually clear the list. That's because we're passing a linked list. Passing a linked list right here to clear list, and we're not actually passing the list that we're on. So in order to actually change that, we'll get rid of this, the linked list, and we'll do this dot items dot clear. So again, I record these videos without any changes so you guys can see my mistakes and see how I go about messing with this stuff. So actually, we don't even need to pass anything anymore. Now we can just run it, and we'll see clearing list. Make that a little bigger. Clearing list, and then the list is cleared. Alright guys, that is all I have for you on this video on linked list. Stay tuned for another video coming up. I'm not really sure what it's going to be on yet. Maybe encapsulation, maybe in polymorphism, which actually encapsulation is basically just this right here, just adding stuff into one class that allows everything that needs to happen to that class happens within that class and not any part of it outside of it. And that's just object-oriented programming, one of the 4 fundamentals of object-oriented programming. We're going to make some videos on all of those in the future, so stay tuned for that. But if you guys enjoyed it, learned something, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification icon. I'll be putting out videos. I create videos at least at least once a week. I would like to do 2-3 times a week, but I've been a little sick. I also have a job that I have to go to, and just moved to Hawaii, so me and my wife are just trying to enjoy the sights and hang out with people and have a good time. Alright, but you guys are awesome. Keep learning. You are amazing. Like I just said, hit the like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.